This is a review for Management 310, Chapter 1. I'll go over the vocab words and then some things we learned from our Excel projects. So, first vocab word, Autocracy Culture. And this is a culture that focuses on creative organization. So, the opposite of this, you don't want this culture like in a workplace where you're manufacturing safety equipment, for example. The manager might be okay with like improv or trying new things. Next is anchoring bias, and this is relying on the first piece of info you get because it's the first piece of information you get. So this is, for example, let's just say someone says, this sushi place is the best, and then someone else, you recommend, we should go there, and then someone else is like, oh no, this other place is good, and then if you're tell back to them like, no, this one, even if you haven't even gone, just because you heard it first, that would be an example of anchoring bias. And I'll try to give like examples to help you or future me watching this remember. ASA framework is attraction, selection, and attrition. So this is normally referring to the job hiring process, but I like to remember this like in terms of The Bachelor. So you have the lead, and then people are attracted to the show and to the lead, so they go on The Bachelor. Then selection, the lead selects, who do they want to keep around, and then attrition, which is elimination process. So it works in a lot of metaphors. You can make up your own, but availability bias. This is the bias to rely on information because it's accessible. And just to stick with that same metaphor, it might be like, I like someone just like on The Bachelor, like, just because they're here, but you might not actually like them. It's just someone who wants to get engaged in the same time frame. The next term is benchmarking. So this is measuring your quality or your progress by comparing it to places where you think you should be at. So an example of this, maybe in sports like soccer, like there's a lot of benchmarking. So in about 6th grade, you're going to want to be able to juggle to 100 and be able to pass pretty well with both feet. And there are just a lot of benchmarks for probably every career field. So if you think of one that you like for your hobby, that helps me remember it. Biases, this is basically like favoritisms, not necessarily good or bad. Everyone has a lot of biases. Our next page is the first term, business ethics. So this is principles that govern how businesses are run. And these can also be good or bad. This is just kind of like a culture, but we're going to go through a lot of cultures. So this is general values and principles that say how stuff is done. Next is clan culture. So this kind of culture values cohesion and team players. So I don't know if this is true because I haven't worked at Starbucks, but I always think of it like clan culture. Everyone seems to like work together. Next is competency, and this is abilities that let you be good and effective at your job. Next is KSAOs, and that includes knowledge, skills, abilities, and others. And this is things that people who are hiring look for in employees. And competency has to do with having knowledge, skills, and abilities that make you competent. Next is gig economy, and this is the idea that the economy is influenced by gig positions. So, for example, if you've seen The Office, Ryan is a temp, so that means he's just there for a temporary amount of time, so that would be a gig. Maybe, I guess a example of a gig would be like performing Harlem Globetrotters at a bar mitzvah or Disney princesses for a birthday party. Those would be gigs. Next is hierarchy culture. So this kind of culture values focus, efficiency, and control. And I always think of dance moms because they literally have like a hierarchical structure, being the pyramid. And usually in these cultures, like rank is pretty important. Lots of businesses. But next is HR business partners. So these are consultants to HR, which means they're outsourced from places. So these people come into the company, work with the company as kind of a third opinion to like see problems, and then do that to a bunch of places. I always thought that would be fun because you could like travel and and meet a lot of new people, so that's cool. HR Generalist, this is basically someone, it's in the title, who has a lot of different functions for HR. They're not specializing in a specific area, but they're a generalist, so this would be like Toby from The Office. Next is the opposite of that, so that's an HR specialist. So they usually have like a specialty in maybe disagreement regulation, assault, compensation. Another kind of give me one, a freebie, it's in the title, you got it. Next term is human resource management. This entire class is just decision making to maximize employee and company effectiveness. Next is market culture. So this kind of culture, there's a high emphasis on competition, and it's very customer focused and very profit focused, which is funny to say because most businesses are profit focused, but this is especially an aggressive culture because they're very focused on the consumers. Next is organizational culture. So this is basically just culture. It's assumptions that affect actions, thoughts, or perceptions. Our final term is overconfident bias. This is the tendency to be confident on your own beliefs because they're yours. I made many mistakes because of this. One fun example, there was a trash can far away. I had half my smoothie finished. I tried to throw it into the trash can even though a lot of people around me said it was a bad idea, but I was like, no guys, I got good aim. It hit the edge of the trash can just as it did. Someone was walking up and it went all over them. It was a mess, but many mistakes are made because of overconfident bias. Our final section, you'll probably for the test just want to go over the correlation coefficients. So this means like when you're evaluating the correlation of data, you have a range from -1 to 1. If it's 0, that means there's no correlation. If it's -1, it means there's a perfect negative correlation. So there's an inverse connection, which basically means that if one thing decreases, the other increases. Then if the correlation coefficient is 1, that's perfect. So it's a positive, perfect correlation. And when interpreting like numbers in the middle, less than 0.1 is not relevant, negligible. 0.1 to 0.29 is small. 0.30 to 0.49 is medium, and 0.5 to 1 is large. Final section. Oh, this will be chapter 2. Okay, there you go. That's all.